Nashville, and I gotta tell you folks, episode 20, it's nice to be actually live in person talking with bands. Tonight, the two participants of the band, is Party Cannon, and this is a band coming all the way the fuck from Scotland, which is absolutely insane, because my own lineage and ancestry also descends from Scotland, with my real last name being Douglas, and apparently that's a decently big name over there. But we got two awesome members from the band. We got the bassist and one of the guitarists from the band, and yeah, to say the least, they're going to be helping us learn more about, well, the only party slam band on the internet, hopefully, and the only band who utilizes the Toys R Us font for their logo. But thank goodness Toys R Us is dead. And just, it's not non-continuous. But as you guys know, we have two halves of the podcast. We have the first half, which is really just us digging into the background of the musicians, and then the second half we ask all the juicy questions, like why the hell is the name Party Cannon, or how was Party Slam invented amongst the five of you gentlemen. But to say the least, here are the members, and just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, where you came from, where you grew up, and how you got into music piece by piece. Take it away.
Cool. I'm Chris. I play bass in Party Cannon. Oh, is this close enough? Do you want me to hold it? Yeah. I'm gonna be a while. Yeah, I'm Chris. I play bass in Party Cannon. I grew up in Dunfermline, Scotland, which is. Here we go. Back on him. Right, so we can probably cut out.
You shitty technophobe.
I didn't realise there was a button there. Fuck's sake. Don't worry. We'll get this done. So I'm Chris. I play bass in Party Cannon. I grew up in a town called Dunfermline in Scotland, which is a pretty small area. It's part of Fife, which is just kind of over the bridge from Edinburgh, which is the capital. So you go over it's now the Queensferry crossing, but it used to be called the Forth Road Bridge. That's a different bridge that was built there. Yeah, so grew up in Dunfermline. How I got into music? Mainly just for music's always been around my house. Like my parents weren't musicians. No one in my family's been a musician, but my dad and my mum, they've always listened to like Black Sabbath, Clapton, Guns N' Roses, that type of thing. Yeah. So the sound like a distorted guitar has always been there in my childhood.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's something I'm accustomed to. So I didn't realise I enjoyed it until I was like a teenager, and I met other people who like music, and
right.
And you start talking about it. But it was always on there, and I could relate to it. It's like, oh, actually, no, I do enjoy this. It's something I can talk to other people about. And yeah, it was just good. It was just fun. Yeah, then it kind of went from there. Learned to play bass. Went from there to death metal. So after like Slayer, went to Cannibal Corpse, into like Dying Fetus, into like Putridity.
All the classics.
Yeah, kind of going down that slope. Then I was like, cool, I want to do this in my spare time. Yeah, what are you, Mike? What are you saying to it?
Hello, I'm Mike. I'm one of the guitarists from Party Cannon. I come from a small town called Wishaw, which is just outside Glasgow in Scotland. We are famous for the biggest E. coli outbreak from one single source and the most amount of fatalities in Europe. For the background story, it was John Barr's The Butchers and a local church group bought a steak pie, didn't cook it properly, and about 20 pensioners died. So cook your meat properly, kids. That's the main lesson.
Sure, it's not meant to have E. coli anyway, right?
Maybe, I'm not sure. But it wasn't good.
No, it's not.
For whatever reason, they didn't cook it right and they fucked up some people. So I got into music probably similar to Chris, to be honest. Like, my dad was really into music. My mum loved like Green Day and the Foo Fighters and shit like that. And my gran, God rest her, she was quite into singing when she went to church. And also she used to do like the karaoke singing at like the pubs, which is a kind of traditional working class thing, I suppose, in Scotland. So I came from a fairly musical background, not any instrumentals per se, but everything was about music.
Right.
There was always music in the house, in the same sense as Chris. I started high school and I realised that I wasn't cool, so I needed something to make me cool. So I thought, I know, I'll be a guitarist. That'll definitely get me women. And between that and having a motorbike, I have no women. That's not fair. Love you, Nancy. That's my partner. She would kick my ass for saying I have no women. Stop it, Mike, you're scaring the hoes.
That's awesome.
And that's kind of where we've got to from here. I've been in the band for about 8 years. The band's been together, what, 11? 10 years this year?
I think it was at 11. I think it was 2010 we started, but we were going to have like a 10th anniversary, but when COVID happened.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we had brainstormed the idea of having some really cool 10th anniversary fun time, and then the world stopped, and we couldn't get off. So that was that.
So we'll probably do like a 10th anniversary for Party and a Half at some point.
Yeah, that would be fun.
That'll be next year. So.
Yeah, that'd be super fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially if y'all come through, I'm definitely going to be dropping by again. But yeah, that's actually really cool. And thus far, pretty awesome introduction from both Chris and do you apologize?
Mike.
Chris and Mike, right? Okay.
Sorry, you're good.
No, you're good.
It's this jackass accent.
Right, exactly. And like, just it's interesting because growing up and stuff, I've plugged plenty into my lineage and stuff and ancestry, and like one of the biggest running jokes is like how thick the accent can be sometimes and how like non-understandable it can be, but like but I'm proud to say that I can hear every single thing these guys are saying. More or less, I've just talked to so many bands at this point that it's like, what is your name? Is it Chris, Gene, John, Mike? Fuck. But really, really awesome start to the podcast session, and to say the least, awesome show that I just attended, seeing these guys. Like, I don't think I'll ever go to a show again to where we are actually fucking trying to mutilate a inflatable orca whale. And that's the reason for us moshing. That and a dude in a Mike Myers mask is also in there trying to mutilate the poor, inflated, fake orca. PETA, eat your heart out, JK. But to say the least, kind of migrating and continuing into the story, I kind of want to learn how the both of you ended up finding Party Cannon and getting into it and deciding that you want to be a part of the project in the first place.
It's a really interesting question because we've both got fairly different answers.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. It's a good point because we both joined the band at one point. So I wouldn't say I started the band, but I am one of the original members. So. Can you be closer? All right, cool. So I wouldn't say I started a band, but I am from the original lineup.
Right.
So way back in the day, in like 2009, 10, that kind of area, I was in a local band called fucking hell. Sorry. I was in a local band called Psychoanalysis, which was completely different from Party Cannon. It was kind of like a techie, melodic, like death metal band. And Craig and Stoney, who are still in the band, they were in another local band called Lycanthropy. I think they're called Lycanthropy at the point. They kept changing their name, which was like a kind of death thrash band. And they had a guitarist called Jack and a drummer called Neil, and they weren't getting on with their bass player. So, I was kind of falling out in love with my band as well, because I want to like play brutal stuff, and they want to sound like Black Dahlia Murder. So, which is fine, it's cool. Like, but that's kind of over. It wasn't really my thing. Like, I enjoy playing those guys and stuff, but yeah. Anyway. What's the point? So we started like talking, and we all shared a similar like taste for like Dying Fetus, Discouraged, Fetus Sanity, that type of thing. So cool, let's start a band. So we started a band called Catatonic Phantophallology. I think that's what it was called.
That's definitely a slam name, man.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a real death metal band.
It's more memorable than Party Cannon.
Yeah, for sure.
I would argue.
Yeah. So, and it never did anything. So we kind of just traded guitar prototypes back and forth, and after a while, it just kind of fizzled out. I did more gigs with my band. They kind of their band dissolved, and they kind of started a few other projects. I think to take it down. So then we kind of came back to it when we were off from university over in the summer, and I wrote a bunch of songs in my spare time, and they all had names like Battle of the Spider-Man, There's a Reason You're Single, Everyone's Still Dead to Me, like that kind of original like EP lineup from the Party Cannon. The original Party Cannon EP release that goes kind of tracks, and I already had those names. So I sent them to Jack, who's in Catatonic Phantophallology as well, and just start talking. I'm like, cool, let's actually do this. Let's get the full lineup together and let's start jamming. And we kind of continue with the theme of having kind of nonsensical song names while having that kind of band name, because we're also still into bands like grindcore bands like Weekend Nachos and Neptune Gentlemen, and all their songs are about drinking and like kind of satirical takes on like current culture and things. So
yeah,
their names, while their music was like kind of serious and brutal, the names were kind of more kind of relatable and kind of a bit more kind of humorous, kind of tongue in cheek. But you listen and you wouldn't go, this is a joke. You go, has a sense of humor, but I still kind of, and that's the kind of thing I was into, because as much as I love like brutal death metal and bands with like insane medical terminology, like for example like Carcass, like one of my favorite bands. I couldn't really see myself doing it. So we started talking like, cool, let's rename the band to something. And term Party Can just kind of came out. And cool, that sounds good. That kind of encapsulates it. So it's still gonna be brutal and fun, but kind of have that tongue-in-cheek this too, that kind of grindcore has. So that's how the original lineup came to be. So the original lineup was me, Stoner, current vocalist, Craig, current guitarist, and Jack, who's on the front of Party and a Half, and we had a drummer called Neil, and they lasted until about 2013 when we started having a lineup change, which is where Mike would come into the band.
And from that point, I had known the guys in the band from just being like local bands together. You know, it's like in music scenes, people cross over, get to know each other, become friends, share lineups. Chris had booked the band that I was in at the time, Agonised Deformity, a couple of times, and I had played bass on like another project before then, and Chris and I had spoken about bass playing and whatever else, so we got on pretty well. We weren't like mega friendly or seeing each other all the time, but you know, it's like in the local scene you get to know people, and you have like a great associations. It's really easy to get to know people. So would have been about 2013, 2014, Chris had said that the other guitarist who was in the band, Jack, couldn't make a tour, and had basically asked if I would like to fill in. And without even thinking about it, I was like, absolutely, I would love to go to Europe with you guys, that will be great fun. I didn't think about it in the sense that I had to learn the songs, and that was very hard. Very hard, because Chris writes some very silly things, in a good way. Like, it's challenging, it's fun, and the mindset that you've always came from is like, if you're not challenging yourself, is it really that fun? Like, are you not trying to push yourself constantly? So I'm more from a background of liking like kind of, I don't know, like nowhere near so maybe, how many songs was it? 6? 5?
I think so, about 5. I mean, there was the 3 tracks in Party and a Half, plus a few more. So we, about 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6 songs. It was just like, if you can learn them, we'll play them on the tour.
Yeah.
So went out with the guys on tour, had an absolute blast. We toured with Laceration and it was just us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just us.
Yeah, just Laceration and Party Cannon. Small van, and they were sharing members as well. So had a total blast. It had been a bit out my wheelhouse, as I say. It wasn't really the genre of music that I was mega into or intended to go and do. But I was like, if I don't try it, I don't know. Like, I just like playing guitar.
Yeah.
I like having fun with people and going and doing social shit.
Right.
And at the time I had considered that it might be a career as well, not necessarily being in a death metal band, but like being a musician and making money off it, trying to make that like the main source of income.
Right.
So I was like, well, the very worst comes to worst, it's under my belt. I can say I've done touring, I have experience here, whatever.
Exactly.
So went to the tour. When I was out with the guys, I had such a good time that I said to them, I don't know what's going to happen with you guys when you go back. If you ever need another guitarist, let me know. I'd love to come and help.
Yeah.
And we got home from the tour, and it was maybe a couple of weeks later that you guys gave me a message just saying slots there if you want it. And Martin had joined us, the drummer, current drummer.
Okay.
He joined 6 months before.
Yeah, so we had kicked our original drummer out twice at this point. So yeah. I'm trying to get it right. So the first time we kicked him out, he bailed on a gig in Leeds like the day before, like no, it's in the morning of, and he'd bailed on a bunch of gigs before then. And at that point, like, right, that's enough. So I got the drummer from my other band, the Sergio Yoon, to fill in for a tour we had booked, because I had no faith in our original drummer making it. So like, I'll just cut my losses and get Yoon on board to fill in. But Yoon was always just going to be filling because he's in my other band, and our band were doing quite a lot of gigs as well. So that was always the agreement. Then our old drummer came back after you, and he's like, right, I've seen that bands like doing stuff. I want to keep honest, like put more effort into it. And I went on for a little bit, but then we got a really big support sort of exhumed, who were like one of my favorite bands, and he bailed the night before, like some terrible excuse. And I had really hassled the promoter to get us on that gig, because at that point we're nobodies in the local scene. We still are nobodies in the local scene, but I mean, back then we're really were like nobodies. And
we're still nobodies in the grand scheme of things. We're just being bullshit, super confident, overly confident coming out here.
Yeah, we're just hoping we're doing best, getting on a flight. It's like, oh, there might be people at gigs. But yeah, so I really hassled the promoter to get on the gig, and I told the guys, like, yeah, we need to play this to make a good job, because obviously I maybe put a bad impression on the guy, but has some sort of. But either way, he kind of fucked me by giving us a terrible excuse and putting me in that position.
Right.
So cool, we have a bunch of our tours lined up, and it was me booking them all by myself at that point. So I didn't really want to risk him like cancelling all these gigs that I put loads of effort into, and everyone else put effort into, and think. Whole bunch of things. So
it was a very, very big moment, and then you just walked out. It's like, fuck, what do we do now?
Exactly right. So I put feelers out. I knew there wasn't many like definite drummers in Glasgow or in Scotland in general, but the guy we had playing at the time, well, he was a definite drummer. He wasn't like amazing. So I thought, if I could just find someone who's willing to learn the songs and practice to the point like our current drummers at, we can make that work. Then we can kind of go from there. So I messaged Martin, and I've seen him play before, and he agreed to fill in for a gig in London with us, and he just nailed it. Absolutely smashed the songs. Like, he absolutely blew the expectations. Like, he came in, he knew 2 songs straight away, and it was just perfect. Like, he made them better. He made the songs faster. He changed drum beats a bit, so kind of.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was great. Like, he just put his own flavor to it.
It's like, I'm here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. He just.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, so he just brought his own thing. He just improved the songs. It was just a good match straight away. He went and played a gig in London with us in 2013, and on the way home we just like joined bands. We got a few hours. We had another guy filling in for a few gigs we had later down the years, like right. So, say it was about July or August when he filled in. We asked him to join, and he'd start officially being in a band in January for a European tour we had booked, which is when Mike joined as well, because our guitarist had to just quit as well. Because he had some other stuff going on.
Right.
A lot of lineup changes, but yeah, it was 2014 we kind of landed on this lineup. So from 2014 onwards, when I had a single lineup change, has been who you see now, me, Craig, Sonny Martin, Mike. So that's nearly 8 years. Yeah, 8 years.
Yeah. There's only been a handful of occasions where we've had fill-ins.
Yeah, what band doesn't have villains at some point? So
exactly. Especially when you're like a slam band, and like there are plenty of people willing to do slam, but it's like they also want to do all these other things as a musician, and it's like you can never like really, you can only hope that people stay half the time, but then when you get really solid people that are willing to stay, it's like, okay, cool, we can actually forge a fucking brotherhood like a band should be.
Yeah, totally right. It's like, I mean, we have full-time jobs and stuff, we have families and things like that, so it's kind of, it's just life. That's just life. But
that's just life.
Yeah, we had a few stand-ins every now and again, but yeah, for what you see now, this has been a lineup since 2014.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really solid. So, if anything, really liking the story that we've been learning so far, because half the time I have to ask musicians these questions and, like, deliberately ask them, but for the most part, you guys have just been kind of breezing through the surface level questions, which is, like, really cool. Like, you guys know what the fucking interview is. So, no offense to anybody before, because y'all have been absolutely great, but, like, these guys, they're just like, yeah, we know what you want to know. Little fucking lineup changes, how the band name got decided, which was basically random, and all this other stuff, the history of the members, the history of the lineup, etc. So that's been really refreshing. But if anything, I did want to kind of poke the bear a little bit and ask a pretty bold question about, like, if you guys ever ran into issues for the logo, like with Toys R Us, if they ever, like, try to go after you guys legally.
Not yet, is the way I would put it. So, Chris looked it up. This was a concern of, like, the full band, I think, maybe, when we started getting really big offers, which would have been 2015.
Yeah, I think it's when we released our first album, that's when it's kind of... Sorry. The first album came in 2015, and that's when we started touring America and doing kind of more international gigs. That's what we kind of thought about it, but I looked up and we're told we're going to right to use the logo. Apparently it's protected under parody law, and you can't really copyright a font because it's such a generic kind of font. It's like, it's similar but it's different. So
Right.
It's enough. You can see the intention is parody.
Yeah. And like the funny thing is too, just with how unique it is, like I'm very surprised, even though the company has since kind of shut down. Like Toys R Us doesn't exist here in the U.S. anymore. It's more like everybody remembers the legendary toy store that also had fucking ridiculous mall prices for their toys, no matter what it was. Like you went to freaking Walmart to get a Lego set, it was $50. There it was probably $75 to $100. It was ridiculous. So it's kind of like bougie Toyland or some shit. And nonetheless, I can only imagine that over time as a business, and this is not even just me taking a shit on major business. It's like this is what happened. I can only imagine that them scalping the prices of Bionicles or Legos or Barbie or fucking My Little Pony, they kind of lost business over time. And as the economy here in the U.S. inflated, I don't know if you guys had a Toys R Us over there in the U.K. or Scotland.
Story. And it was things like Amazon and direct to customer marketing that was like the other nail in the coffin.
Exactly.
Right. So they had the prices wrong and they had the strategy wrong. Just fucked it.
Yeah, and it's essentially a business went out of business, and they're kind of a ghost. It's just a memory of a company now. It's a memory of an idea. And so a part of me was thinking that since I found out about you guys so later in time, it's like, wait, did they kind of just utilize the font after they died? Like, what happened with that? Like, when did you guys, like, from the beginning, were you just like, yeah, fuck Toys R Us, we're like,
Kind of. And the reason I say not yet is that I believe that Toys R Us are coming back as a company. So hopefully they don't come after us. But I mean, the joke's on them because we don't have fuck all to give them.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's not like you guys are trying to sell toys for 3 times the value of the original product. Y'all are just making... Not yet. There you go.
Party Cannon Toys coming to a store near you.
Party Cannon versus Toys R Us 2023, baby. That should absolutely be what the next album is about. It's just a fucking war with Toys R Us.
Oh, man, I'm gonna right. This gets out of hand, so I'm trying to I'm trying to condense this. But the guy who we had originally dropped the logo was this guy in North Carolina or South Carolina, I think.
Really?
And and he was cool at the time. He was all good. He did the logo for us. It was reasonably priced. Did a good job. He did a t-shirt design for us. That was all fine. Then based on that, since we had a good rep with each other, and I like messaged him, like talking like BMA sometimes. I tried to commission him for a second t-shirt design, and he disappeared off the face of the planet. And he just like took my money and ran off.
Oh really?
Yeah, but he kept reappearing every now and again, like online. And I'd call him out, and he'd like delete his page, like you owe me money. And this went on for years and years and years.
Oh Jesus!
Like,
legitimate years.
Like seriously, years and years. So I kept like a log of all the times this happened, and then all these other people started cropping up, being like, "Did that guy rip you off?" I was like, "Oh yeah, he's ripped me off. I've got all these receipts saying I sent him this money and that." Then eventually he came back, so I left a review on his Facebook page saying he ripped us off. He designed 2 pieces for us, and he ripped us off like over $100 on a third design. Yeah. Then he started claiming weird things like he could talk to the universe, and we're all part of like a cult, and we're all satanic pedophiles and things like that. Then he kept spamming me saying I owed them royalties for t-shirt designs. And he kept trying to rat us out to Toys R Us for fucking using the logo. He kept tagging Toys R Us's Facebook page on our page. Like, hey man,
we aren't a company at this point, by the way.
Yeah. I don't think Toys R Us legal team run their Facebook page as well.
Or give a fuck about $100 over a private sale of artwork for a death metal band t-shirt. Motherfuckers.
So that whole thing escalated, and entire internet just like turned on that guy. And
Derek Tickle.
Yeah, he was just getting like review bombed by random people saying this guy won't refund you and he'll claim you're part of a pedophile cult. And yeah, he was insane.
So, just for a matter of context and trying to be fair, it's a crazy story, but we think the guy maybe had his own issues, like genuine mental health issues. Oh. It's not an excuse. It certainly doesn't free him of the responsibility of not delivering what he promised people and taking money off them. But if the guy is that ill, and these are the responses we're getting from basically saying, can you give us the $100? In fact, the last message that we sent, which Chris sent, basically said, we don't care about the money. If you've done the art, which you claim you have, just send it and that'll be it done. We can just call it, that'll be it. Yeah. We just want to put it to bed. We either want the art that we paid for, or the money back for the
I mean, I am actually getting into logo designing myself, and not to call anybody out, like my first commission. It's also a tight spot. It's just very disappointing. Like, giving people money for art, and then they're just kind of trying to walk around. They're trying to slither around it like a snake, and you're like, oh, well, I mean, the snake part's obvious, but like, you're obviously venomous. You're toxic.
Yeah,
you know.
I think when people get into stuff like that, they don't quite realize how much time commissions take up. So they're probably like doing like a full-time job. Like, oh.
I mean, yeah, maybe. But then when they're literally ghosting you and avoiding conversation with you, and then trying to claim Party Cannon as their own project, their own logo, it's like, okay, you can fuck off now. Like, this is business. And even like you mentioned, even if he's like in a mental health position, like any type of thing going on with him, it's like, nonetheless, it's business at the end of the day. Unfortunately, business is kind of deprived of emotion, and in this case, empathy, when you're kind of in a almost scandalous situation and you're trying to screw over a band who literally like could give less of a shit, but it's like, at the end of the day, they gave you money, give them their fucking art. Like, it's very, very simple, but
at one point it just became petty for us. Like,
yeah.
Like, we knew we weren't getting money back, and we
Exactly.
weren't bothered about the art.
Right.
So it was like, let's just fucking lean into it. If this guy's going to call us a paedophile, let's just see how long it goes on. Like, which is really bad on our part, if I'm honest.
Exactly.
Like I say, I need to acknowledge the guy, from what we've been told, has his own issues. We're not out to be shitty with people.
Yeah.
We spent the longest time trying to be reasonable about it, chat with them, make arrangements, like, be flexible.
Yeah.
We're all artists, we know what it's like.
Exactly.
We're all people, we know what it's like. But that wasn't a situation where it was, I need some time or some help.
Yeah.
Thanks for the understanding. We all got to a resolution.
Yeah,
that just
exactly.
didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and I can only imagine he didn't say anything like that. So at that point, it's like, I don't really have any sympathy for anything that's going on, because you are refusing to communicate. You are refusing to acknowledge our business operation and our business transaction. It's a transaction in the first place. This is money. And sure, I mean, money is a very human and artificial concept, but like, it's how the world goes round right now. And this is just one tiny example. There's plenty of situations where people just get ripped off for stupid fucking reasons, or people are petty so they refuse to pay, whatever the situation might be. It's like, dude, if you're having issues, you got to communicate it with the people that you're doing business with, and most likely, as I'm getting the impression of right now, and they are confirming, they will be reasonable. But once you're not even doing that, it's like, oh, so you're just not someone to deal business with at all, or give any money to in this spectrum of business. Like, it's not good. It's not fair, because everybody is having to constantly make money, and when you're making money, you've earned the money that you have, and you're giving it to someone else for basically a fun little side project, an arts and crafts project, but with guitars and inflatable balloons and inflatable whales and all that other shit. Like, it's very, very important to these people, but nonetheless, it's like, it just sucks to be in that situation. And I do apologize that y'all have been having to run into that recently. Yeah.
It's part and parcel of everyday life. You can't win every interaction you get part of, and sometimes people can't deliver what they're going to, or they say they will, and you just have to adjust your expectations and move on.
Exactly. Well, I mean, with that being said, we are learning so much about such, I would argue, a legendary band. Like, everybody in the podcast, in my subscription list to the 309 of you now, which is really cool. Some of you have to know Party Cannon if you're into weird, very niche, unique, distinguishable music. This is Party Slam. This is, again, the only band in the world whose logo is based on the Toys R Us font, for, lack of better legal ways of going about that. And I can't even imagine, again, another show that is going to be like the one I just attended. Small venue for sure, but like, very humble people, and we were just beating the shit out of an inflatable whale. I don't think I'll ever forget that. That and the vocalist just like, or whatever. Yeah, the bubble box. It's so funny. I've never seen a band or heard a band like this before. So, with that being said, we kind of migrate into. I'm a little bit curious on how Volumes of Vomit was made compared to previous records in the Party Cannon discography. Like, was there any different approaches? I know lyrically it's not really much, and that's completely fine. I'm okay with that, and that's why I'm here. But more or less, like, what did you guys do differently with this album compared to previous ones?
I suppose we were kind of forced into doing something a bit different, with lockdown being the main thing.
Yeah.
We had been writing music, we had been getting ready to record, and we had planned to. We actually had it booked to go to Germany to record with Jörg Ucken at Sound Lodge in Germany. He did previous recordings for his mixes and mastering, and he's done bands like Defeated Sanity and stuff. So the guy's very, very good. In fact, he had Anvil there after he had mixed our album, and he sent us a video of Lips from Anvil, listening to it and being like just bewildered as to like what have you exposed me to? And so he didn't look happy. But with lockdown, this was like literally maybe a week before we were about to depart, things properly shut down and we had to cancel, and it fucked plans left, right and centre.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of adapt and improvise from there. We had to take a hiatus with practicing and stuff as well, just health concerns. Obviously we all have our own families, whether that's staying with our parents or partners or kids or whatever, and it was horrible uncertain times for everyone, but we kept working, we kept grinding at home, we kept doing our best to get into the studios once things started to lighten up and the restrictions weren't quite as bad and we were more comfortable wearing masks and social distancing and wash our hands, whatever else. We got into the studio as much as we could done, and through a few different options that didn't work out, we ended up recording in Glasgow at, is it Transmission Room?
Yep, Transmission Room in
Clydebank. Transmission Room in Clydebank. And the engineer was actually someone who's filled in for Party Cannon before, so he was aware of our stuff, knows us very well. Big thanks to George for his hard work and dedication. So we ended up in the studio in the year. We were there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, around that, on and off 2 weeks. It was like 3-4 days for drums, 4 days for guitars as well.
Yeah.
1 day for bass, 4 days for vocals. Yeah, kind of in and out.
It kind of worked out well that way, because initially we had been on more of a tight budget going to Germany to record and having a set amount of days to work everything, and we would have had to be probably a bit more steadfast with our approach, and maybe not spend as much time mic placements, etc. You know, like just like the geeky shit.
Right.
But we got quite lucky, and again, knowing George and it being quite local to where most of us stay, it wasn't bad for commuting. We didn't have to worry too much about like these are the set hours we're working with. And George was pretty flexible as well, which was good. So that was the kind of the main aim of that. We still sent the tracks off to Jörg in Germany, where we had planned to record originally, to do the mixes and mastering. And he hit the nail on the head pretty much straight away. Yeah. There was like one revision?
Yeah, about one major revision. It was mostly like kick-outs that we wanted to change, but no, the first mix we sent back was overall what we wanted the song to look. So, yeah, so it wasn't like too much tweaking, just like minor things.
Yeah.
So that was good. That's always nice, because usually you get a first mix back, you're like, what the fuck is this?
I think we haven't been familiar with the work definitely helped. Obviously, George and Jörg both knowing the band, like they had communicated already, basically like, what kind of microphones are you looking for us to use, what would you prefer, how would you prefer it to be done, what formats do you want the files in, blah blah blah, so that it was just like as little work as possible to then migrate it all into Jörg's system and do the mixing and mastering. It came out great, and because Jörg had worked with us before and had heard our general feedback about how we like mixes, when we got it back it was like excellent. It's somewhere perfectly in between produced that you can hear it in raw, where it sounds like a real instrument in a room.
Yeah, that's good.
It was like a perfect balance for us. Yeah. Especially for Volumes of Vomit. I'll let Chris tell you more about the artwork and the concept, because that was more him.
Yeah. So over lockdown, we still got like lots of support from fans and stuff, like writing in, like, can't wait to hear your Party Cannon. People were still ordering merch and stuff. That's cool. That was really cool, considering I know a lot of people who were locked down had a pretty hard time. So the fact they're choosing to support us when they could be supporting other artists, or maybe their own troubles and things like that. It was nice to know like they valued the band to the point where even in a situation like that, they're still having to give us money. We did very well in merch over lockdown, which I was very surprised about. So the cool, it was great. Still getting lots of mentions, support and things. People still seem hyped about the band, even when there's no live gigs and there's nothing really in the pipeline, or the album is just a mystery date away. So we thought of a good way to try and incorporate all our fans, as we could, well, anyone who wanted to be part of the album, into the album, as a kind of thank you for the support.
Yeah.
So what we did was we did this campaign where we asked for fans to send us pictures of them partying, doing something obnoxious, or throwing up were the kind of main criteria. So we ended up getting over 200 submissions of people throwing up into our inbox, and we made a carcass-style collage for the sleeve. So the more you go through the artwork and the booklet, the more pictures of people throwing up and just being fucking insane you find.
It's like a fever dream, man. It's a nightmare of a thing to look
it's like
at.
insane. It's like truly horrendous.
It was probably the most interesting moment of my life, getting a copy of it as a press pack in like a PDF on the computer and looking at it and going, yes, this is satisfactory.
The thing is, it's like,
oh shit!
Alright, totally.
Is that Batman in that window?
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, fucking looks like
Yo, we got Batman up in the window though. Something's in my ass. I need to see that movie still.
I've not seen it yet either. It looks good.
Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, I've heard of good things, man.
Where were we? What were we even talking about there?
Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, so
Yes.
pretty happy with how our work turned out. We've got Jan from Fluids and Cochino Grind on Instagram to work together on it because they're really good at kind of college pieces. I really love the band Carcass, like the first three Carcass albums are like my favourite things there. And that's all kind of like gore grind kind of college art stuff, just taken from medical textbooks. So that'd be a nice homage because they're one of my biggest influences. And yeah, it involved our fans. It's still really kind of bright to look at, but when you look at it, it just gets more and more obscene. So it's kind of, it's a good layered effect. Yeah, it's something that gives you to think about. And it's also fun to have like an album art booklet you can read through and find information and just see cool stuff. Which I think is something like I'm kind of losing these days since everyone's like streaming stuff. Like I stream stuff all the time, but I still buy
Whether he raps himself or
Right.
even like in terms of a DJ or MC, he just seems to be like this guy that sticks out like a sore thumb. However, fuck Tim Westwood.
There you go. But yeah, just like speaking on the custom cars and stuff, like I've always wanted a 1969 cherry red Chevy Chevelle, I think, and have like neon lights or something, but then just have a whole case worth of just CDs, because I have like about 50 CDs now at home, including like 6 or 7 that are signed by the entirety of a band, and I'm just building up my collection. Never plan to sell any of them, just in case anybody was wondering. No, fuck off. These are my CDs.
That's what we're mentioning, so I'm going to jump in and look at merch, but
Yeah.
stay and talk to you.
Yeah, cool. Of course, by all means. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for stopping by. Yeah, Chris is departing. No, you're good. So, in that case, it's like, I guess, I don't know. It's cool to have the custom cars and like to have that goal. And I just love physical CDs. I'm not really about like streaming, but it is indeed convenient. And having like 60 different records downloaded onto my Spotify is a nice little luxury. So thank goodness for Spotify. I still remember when it was the underdog for streaming services. That was a very interesting time. Just like nobody really cared about is iTunes, but then you got Spotify and people were like, yeah, I mean, but what about Sharkwave or whatever it was called? Definitely interesting times. But as we continue into the interview and even prepare to conclude for the night, because I have an hour drive getting home and then I got work in the morning. These guys have
Super,
to...
dude.
Yeah.
Super.
It's going to be fun. I have to ask, because I think you were mentioning it more specifically. What is your guilty pleasure music to listen to? And do you have any artists that you absolutely love that are not metal?
Loads, like probably more than I should admit. As I say, like, I know I'm the poser in the band, but I don't mind. Like, I like a bit of everything.
There's no such thing as poser. It's called variety, my friend.
No, I don't say that to Chris. I was like, once before, just to annoy him, I was like, "You're a fucking elitist." He's like, "I'm not an elitist. I just know what I like." Funny guy, even when he doesn't mean it. Guilty pleasures. Well, why don't I try and give you 5 albums that I think you should go and listen to?
Yeah.
You can go and put them in a playlist for your drive home.
Yeah.
Right. 5 albums that I would listen to, or I listen to consistently, that probably won't come under metal or would be left field for most people to just go and pick up. Bjork, the album Post.
Okay.
It's 1990, I believe. It's strange as fuck. The only way I can describe it is it's like high art as music, right? It's really fucking mental. Charlie Puth, Voice Notes. It's pop, but it's really good pop.
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't know who Charlie Puth is, which you probably will because of Too Fast and Furious when
Yes.
Paul Walker passed away and stuff. But he's got a lot of hits on the radio. A lot. Probably more than you would realise, and I was the same. I fucking hated that fucking song that was meant to be the Paul Walker tribute, to the point where, arguably probably pretty ignorantly, I was like, if that was like a song, some sort of like dirge for when I pass away, I would be unhappy from the grave. I just think it's just not what I would want. But that's me just being a total dickhead. Anyway, as it turns out, I listened to Voice Notes and I fucking love that full album. And there's like maybe 10 tracks on it. 7 of them were on the radio at some point, and I would hear it and be like, "Oh, I know this, but I don't really like it." And then when I gave it a listen in the context of the album, but was a bit more open-minded, it turns out I really did like it. So that was a nice kind of reminder of, don't be a pretentious ass. And I'm pretty bad for it, to be honest. John Mayer, Continuum.
John Mayer, okay.
Really chilled album. Quite bluesy, quite folky.
Yeah.
It's nice, good guitar work in it. Really, really well recorded.
Yeah.
Painting myself into a corner here, saying I would give you 5. What else would I'll tell you what, I'm going to have a quick look at my phone and I'll keep chatting.
Right.
I downloaded quite a lot of music for coming here, and then on the plane I was so uncomfortable I got really angry and was like, I'm not even going to listen to my own music. like a total grumpy bastard. The Impossible Kid, Aesop Rock, just an absolute lyrical wordsmith. This guy is a poet, is the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
And it's, most of the songs are just more like train of thought.
Yeah.
Him just either like explaining something and just being really cool, or just chatting about himself, and it's really down to earth, really interesting. And what else have I got on here? Oh, I mean, this one kind of is metal, but it's
I already
close.
see the cover.
Sundowning.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're looking at Waking the Cadaver. That definitely is metal. I can't even say that's not really quite metal, because Don would beat my ass. Don was at one of the shows. He actually came up and did some guest vocals. He did some on Volume of Vomit.
Oh,
so he came on stage and did his part, which was fucking cool of him.
Nice.
The guys were touring with Waking the Cadaver in Asia a couple of years ago. I missed the tour. Right, so this is a metal album, but it's not straightforward growly metal vocals. It's quite poppy. Sundowning by Sleep Token.
Okay.
That's another wee interesting one. Oh, here, I'm just going to give you one, just as a wee bonus. Science by Incubus.
Okay.
Everyone knows Incubus. You've heard all the radio hits. If you haven't heard Science, go and listen to it. It is proggy, fusiony, funk, madness, and it's so well recorded.
Incubus. It's fun.
Oh, mwah, so good. Lots of slap bass, lots of crazy DJ noises. Just
It's fun.
Just great fun.
It's fun music.
Yep. Right, I want your guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure? I don't even really. I've kind of gotten to a point as a musical enthusiast. I can pick one artist from every genre. I'm not one of those people who I listen to everything, and then obviously you show them Party Cannon or Waking the Cadaver, they're like, but I don't listen to this, and they're freaking out. They're having a fucking panic attack. I'm like, no, I have an artist from every single goddamn genre on the planet, and I'm proud of it. But the strangest one would probably be Heilung. If you've ever heard of them, they're classic, ancient not even just classic folk or ancient folk, Norwegian folk. And it's just like, it's continuous, but it's prayers, it's Viking prayers. I absolutely love it.
Has that got like throat singing and stuff through it?
Yeah. Yep, throat singing.
I recognise the name. It's not a genre that I am very familiar with at all. But I used to work with a guy who was really into like classical music and like Gregorian chants and stuff.
Yeah.
And I always found it, though it wasn't a genre that I was interested in getting into, it was interesting.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah. That and maybe Billie Eilish, I guess. But like everybody likes Billie Eilish. But that would be probably my guilty pleasure artist. And like, I'm like, dude, I listen to whatever the fuck I listen to because I'm very open-minded. I'm not a prick about my genres. It's more like, because I'm trying to get into black and deathcore, black metal community, the same community where people at the very start of it in Norway were, burning down churches actually and killing each other. It's like, I feel an obligation to have to defend myself by saying, no, I'm not a theistic Satanist. No, I'm not homophobic. No, I'm not misogynistic. I don't plan to fucking murder anybody for any of those reasons.
I mean, you could just say I don't like Varg.
That's true, yeah, exactly. Or I just simplified too, I don't like Varg, there you go. But like, I almost feel an obligation, and I did in junior high and high school too. Everybody did that was participating in metal, death metal, whatever. Just like, oh, are you Satanist? Like, do you want to kill yourself? Are you suicidal? I'm like, no, I actually kind of think of it as an accent. And that's kind of been my mindset. Not even that it's like super heavy and I just want to beat the shit out of something to it. But it's actually more or less an accent. And that's how I've always enjoyed metal and death metal and like deathcore. It's like you hear someone speaking English but in a Spanish accent or a Mexican accent. Like, orale, homie. Like, what the fuck you up to, homie? And then the step after that, you learn how to speak Spanish. And that was kind of like metalcore to deathcore to deep, brutal slam.
So, I suppose the way that I would try to understand what you're saying is like, there's a vocabulary with each kind of genre, and you learn the language that way.
Yeah,
if it's like an accent or a language or whatever. That's cool.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, legitimately analyzing the deeper and heavier it gets. I'm like, okay, this is like caveman accent, or this is like a German accent compared to a Russian accent, or like just kind of loosely Irish. Something you can understand, like watching any of the characters in Brave. They're passionate, but you can still hear them. And then you got Merda in like Wreck-It Ralph or whatever, and literally the running joke is that they can't understand her. It's the difference between that, and that's how I've always enjoyed it. People, even my best friends, they're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, no, I just love the way it sounds, and I love the way they talk, and even the way that they utilize vowels, and you can still understand it. You got the emphasis on vowels. It's just always been an interesting art form to me at the end of the day. And obviously I'm a vocalist, but I'm also trying to get into bass, so like the filthy freaking slaps that we heard from Chris tonight, oh my god, those are always satisfying to hear live. And just like, I almost always describe it as shuffling bones, which is very, very strange to say. And I've always thought it was odd. But it's like, I just think of walking through bones and skulls and, like, unfortunately them cracking under my feet. And, like, that's just like the twang, twang, twang to the twang, twang.
I know what you're talking about. Like
it's weird.
The trebly clanky side of the bass sounding like what you would imagine a brittle bone to sound like snapping. I totally get what you mean.
Yeah. And maybe even like a xylophone spine, like a spine xylophone, just like it sounds exactly like that to me. But just very satisfying. And obviously, we're both musical enthusiasts. You being a guitarist and doing all the riffs and doing all the chugs and stuff, just making and contributing to one of the most entertaining slam bands I think I will ever see live. Yeah, of course. And I guess to wrap it up for the night. I don't know if you and I have been primarily in contact on Instagram or not. Or
it would have been Chris. Chris runs the social media accounts. Yeah.
Right. So if anything, we were talking and kind of like spitballing earlier, passive aggressive or not passive aggressively, but just like spitballing about a 10-year anniversary tour or like just like anything for the future of Party Cannon. Do you have anything that you would want to do in the future? Maybe bands that you would want to tour with?
Well, I can't give any information away because there's nothing set in stone, but we might have a pretty ridiculous tour that we have been asked to join support throughout the UK, which would potentially springboard us into some much bigger things. If that happens, fuck yes, But what is happening at the moment is, despite the fact that Volume of Vomits is only just out, Volumes of Vomits just out, we are midway through writing another album. So we're trying to be as hard on it as possible. We've been pretty lucky so far. We even managed to be pretty productive during lockdown. Didn't expect to go unlucky and lucky in the sense that we moved the best of the kids from the situation. We've got the album out, we've made the video so far, and just trying to kind of break the high of it. I don't know if big things coming soon. How soon? How big? We'll see.
Well, there you have it, folks. That was episode 20 of the Anatomy Podcast with both Chris and Mike. Absolute blast. Obviously, it's been really exhilarating. The first in-person interview that we've done. Kind of similar to people have compared to back in the days, Frederick and guys. But, you know, yeah, apparently. Oh, not hardcore. Keemstar was like a blonde, swoopy-haired kid, and he would like interview plenty of bands, but apparently he got nailed on social media for being a pedophile.
Oh.
And being so he kind of disappeared, he went offline, and he hasn't come back since. But we're here to take his place. We're here to take his place and continue strong. Obviously, for those of you who have been following the channel, Body Snatcher is coming up on the podcast, which I'm so fucking excited for. And it ain't going to be in person per se, but to say the least, that is going to be the biggest band that we've had on the podcast. We're going to be promoting Bleed Abide. It's going to be super fun. And I don't know, what else do you have to say before we wrap things up?
Thanks very much for having me. I actually have a podcast as well, which you'd be more than welcome. Do you mind if I plug?
Yes.
That'd be okay. So I am one half of a guitar and music kind of business podcast where we just talk shit on lots of people. Probably have a lot of enemies. I haven't really made any hot takes today, but sometimes I'm pretty obnoxious. Yeah. So the podcast's called The Guitar Souls.
The Guitar Souls?
Yeah, because we're arseholes and guitarists, which is brilliant. And it helps as well that my co-host, Levi Clay, big shout out to Levi, is quite well known in the music scene as well. He's a pretty well known professional transcriber.
Okay.
We'll do like tabs and notation for every project you can imagine, every band you can think of. Used to work for big guitar magazines and stuff. Anyway, he's as much a dickhead as I am, but he's got a bigger audience to be a dickhead to. Right. So I don't know if we're liked or disliked, but we have fun. We seem to enjoy it.
Right.
You want to check us out? The Guitar Souls podcast on most podcast sites and on YouTube.
Sick. And
thanks very much for having me, man. This has been absolutely brilliant.
Of course, man, and much appreciated. That'll wrap it up, and we will see you guys next time with either Vile Impregnation, Golgothan, or Body Snatcher. We'll see. But you guys be sure to have a great night, and thank you for listening.